All right, good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Jessie, and I am with Kelly, who's live on site.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
And today we're going to be talking to you about 12 ways to use Koha to improve the patron experience. So we are excited to show you some different ways that you can engage your patrons on both the Opac and changing some preferences on the staff client to make that experience go smoothly for them. So just a little bit about us. I'm sure you've seen our friendly faces around before. Kelly and I do Monday Minutes, just the short little blurbs to talk to you about what you will see in Koha or how to do things a little more efficiently. And so we're going to bring that same aspect to you today and show you a couple tips to get through setting that up.
So as Jessie said, our goal for this presentation is to show you how to customize Koha to further engage your patrons. Hopefully we show you something that you didn't know existed or you never thought you should turn on, and today might be the day that you can make that change.
So the first thing we're going to talk about is how to add helpful websites to the Opac and the staff client. And there's a few different ways that you can do that. There are some system preferences along with news features. So if you've been following us on Monday Minutes, you know that there's a few system preferences that were previously system preferences, both Opac credits and Opac NavWrite, that are now in the news feature. And that allows you to use the news feature to customize both of those enhancements as they're going out. So it allows you to schedule them so you could set dates and then easily use that WYSIWYG to bring it in. And then you also have the Opac More searches, which is your system preference that you can customize. And Kelly's put together some great examples here that I'll let her talk about.
Just a little heads up, after we do this presentation, we will pop over into our little test site and show you hands-on doing this. So we'll just give you some screenshots now, but then later we're going to pop into these. So we can easily add more links underneath your search bar, such as I have Webinar Solutions, sign up for a newsletter, town website. So think about those patrons that you may want to use your library website as a way for them to access more resources in the community. So allowing them to have a one-stop shop in your library catalog and allow them to be able to find more information. We are using the bottom of the Opac to do more things like library hours, curbside pickup hours, and then ways to contact us. So we're using a lot of the Opac, almost like a website, if you may, to allow your users, once they're in, to be able to get all that information in addition to those books and electronic resources that you have.
Perfect. The next one we're going to talk about is search categories. And search categories are a great way for you to combine item types that may be in a similar category. So the ones we have here as an example are, DVDs. You may have Blu-rays, you may have DVDs. If you are an academic library, you might have course reserves, and you might have 2-hour course reserves, 4-hour course reserves, 24-hour course reserves. So instead of making your patrons or students or faculty, go through that really long list of all of the options that they have available, you can condense that into one, so it makes it a lot easier for them to view that information. So this is just one way that you can kind of combine that and just make it a little bit easier. Another good example is the book, where you might have new books, hot on the shelf, whatever it is.
Books, whatever, yeah. Yeah, so this is just, again, I know a lot of libraries don't think about their Opac. Sometimes once they set it, they forget that there are users. And so it's nice to go back into your Opac and say, okay, if I'm a patron, is this useful? What's useful on my page? What can I make easier? So if I know somebody's coming in and saying, show me all the DVDs, they don't want to say, well, is it a new DVD or is it an old DVD? Like, which DVD do I choose? So trying to streamline your patrons' process.
Okay, the next one we're going to talk about is the advanced search, and just doing some easy simple little things that can make it easy for them to find what they're looking for. You know, using icons, cleaning up so they don't see repetitive information, and just giving them a clean interface. And again, Kelly put some really great examples in here. We went through some of our libraries and looked at some different examples, and she pulled together some great ones here. And you'll notice in the first one where you can see some are all capitalized, you know, just some basic little things that can keep things consistent. In the next example below, you see office. You know, how is the patron going to know what an office is? It might be some professional material that you keep in the office, or something that, you know, a patron or a staff member might have to refer to. You know, those are things that you can hide or not make visible because they may have no idea how to get to that area. And I'll let Kelly talk about that last example below with the collections.
This was a website or an Opac I found where they're using the Dewey numbers for their collections. I went to library school. I have my master's. I can't tell you half of what these Dewey numbers mean as a actual librarian. So can your user know what they're looking for if they go to the 500s, the 599s? What does that mean to anybody? I know maybe the 600s, that's cooking, gardening, crafting. I mean, there's a big plethora of things in your 600s. So is this helping your user? Is it, think about yesterday's presentation with Katie. She's using the subjects. She's using ways for her users to find information easier. You know, so instead of using those numbers, we could bulk it and say, okay, Dewey meant to say religion and philosophy is in the 200s. That might be more useful to your patron. So all of what you find on your Opac is customizable. Super easy. We'll go in later and show you how easy it is to go in and change the text to something different that will be useful.
And, you know, just some basics here. So if you're just getting started or getting ready to migrate Koha for the first time, think of your item types as material types. Think of your shelving locations as where something physically lives in the library. And then you have your collection codes, which is what describes your collection. So if you're just getting ready to migrate, or even you're thinking about cleaning things up, keep those things in mind as you move forward and set those up in the system. Absolutely.
I remember this Monday Minutes, or actually this could have been pre-Monday Minutes YouTube. You can add YouTube links to your bib records. So you can link your user out to a YouTube video, whether that's a movie trailer. So if you're like really getting into, you have a big, you know, movie buff town, you can have your YouTube link show the trailer. If we go to the next slide, there's a few examples, Jessie, that during the pandemic, this has been useful for libraries to link to story times. So if a user wants to see a story time that they're not able to see live, they can watch a recorded story time. So we have the LA Public Library story time there. And also if you have crochet or sewing or books that you want to be able to share other tutorials with, you can do that as well.
You know, Creative Bug is hot, and people are bringing that in. And this is just one great way for you to embed that so people can see it right away. Another one is, you know, little videos or trailers for releases of books or when books turn into movies. You know, this is just another way to highlight that information, to engage your patron, get them to watch it, get them pumped up, you know, whether they're reading the book or watching the movie. It's just another nice way to take that media and bring it into Koha. All right. Our fifth tip is about table settings. And this is just another way for you to customize kind of what is displayed on the Opac and the staff client. And in this example here, Kelly has pulled in, you have a preview over here on the left-hand side where you can see what the table settings look like. And again, we'll show you this in just a few minutes in administration. If there are things on the Opac and the holdings table that you don't want to display, you know, a lot of times people will have a barcode up there and they don't want to show the barcode, or maybe they don't want to show the number of holds that are waiting. These are all things that you can come in and either hold, hide by default, or make visible. There's lots of examples in here that you can do on both the Opac and the staff client.
Yeah, so it's good to note that you may never know that you could have customized a lot of the tables within Koha, both on the staff and the Opac. And it's good to see this table settings. Current Koha users, it's called column configuration. And our next upgrade, we're changing it to table settings. So just starting to get that in your head that that's the same thing as it was a column configuration.
And it seems like almost with every release, you see more and more settings that get added to those configurations. So making it just a lot easier for you to set that information up.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you didn't know it, you can add PDF records to your PDF files to your records. So I'm thinking like your board minutes, town resources. So we have like a rec flyer that comes out fall and winter. Would be great if a user like searched that, or you had a link to that from the homepage of your Opac. If you have images that are relevant, so maybe like a image of a hiking map, you can say I've cataloged all our hiking trails and now you can get a hiking map. So just think of ways that you can connect your files to bib records and have that access to your users. It's great to have your town agenda, your meeting minutes that they can easily search.
And you can use this, take it a step further, even more than PDFs. It can be, a JPEG or a PNG. It can be an RTF file. Whether you have an image. We've had examples from museums. Museums have said to us, we'd like to attach an image in here. There's multiple things that you can do. And these are just a few examples of what libraries have done to engage with their patrons.
We have lists. I mean, are we all using lists? Whoever we have our Koha, local Koha users. I love a good list. Wally, do you use lists? I know you use lists for your state awards. So if you're highlighting something new in your collection, or people are always looking for, I've got a middle grade, let me go to the middle grade state award list, or New York Times bestsellers, or new DVDs, or you've got a big collection of political thrillers. You could say, okay, let me make a political thriller list. This is a great way to highlight things in your collection. So I grabbed a few examples from a couple of public libraries that are our partners, just to show you the plethora of things that people are listing out to allow their users to find. And remember, the lists, if it's attached to a list, it's going to show in the MARC record as well for your user to link back to that. So if they didn't know you had a list of your, what is it called, Blue Bonnet? Your Blue Bonnet, then let me find the rest of the Blue Bonnet award winners. So this is fantastic, and I love the diversity of these lists.
And lists have even become even more diverse over the years. For those of you that use a cover flow on your Opac front page, where you can see the cover images of those titles that you have in your collection. When CoverFlow first came out, it was generated by reports, which it still can be. But now you can also use lists to generate those cover flows, which means you can control those lists. So if you want to update or change any type of titles on there, it will automatically update that cover flow for those lists. So it's just another way that you can get that information right in the front of your patrons.
Can we talk about this one? If anybody uses Koha now, they have the facets. So your user will search politics, government, and then they get those facets to help them narrow down on their results. You can reorder those facets. I mean, mind blown. I didn't even know that you could do this. This is not something native to Koha, but I have some great jQuery that will hack that up to be able to say, this facet I find more helpful to my users than the facets such as holding library or location. So you can move them around, and we'll show you how you can do that. So it's pretty fantastic to know you can customize what's displayed to your user and really highlight what's useful information and maybe not as useful.
George and Christopher talked just about a little, if there's something not in Koha, you can use jQuery and other things to make that happen. the power of open source. And this is just one of those great examples. Lucas, who is a web designer at Bywater Solutions, is constantly working with libraries to listen about like ideas or things that they may want. And this has been just a great enhancement to help patrons easily find what they're looking for. So, you know, bringing it back to some of those presentations that we've already seen, just an easy way for you to make some simple changes. The next tip we'll talk about is self-registration. And of course, some libraries use this, some libraries don't. We saw a real big spike in self-registration during the pandemic because we wanted people to easily be able to get in and have access to electronic resources during the pandemic. And Koha has really, really grown over the last few years, expanding what options are available for self-registration. So you can easily turn that feature on. It allows your user to go in, self-register from the Opac, and there's a couple different options that you can have them essentially go in and either verify that they're real or set them up right away, and we'll show that to you a little bit later.
Yeah, this was a hot thing over the pandemic because we wanted our users, our patrons, to have access to the electronic resources. I mean, we couldn't get into the library, but we wanted them to be able to use our resources. So this is great. One of my favorites. Another pandemic thing, although this came around the same time as the pandemic, but it was really highlighted, I think, during the pandemic. If you went to a restaurant early on in the pandemic, you weren't given menus, you were given these QR codes. And I remember a few years ago when you saw a QR code in a magazine, you're like, I need an app, I need to download something to be able to scan this. Now, times have changed. You can use your camera and scan a QR code. So Koha has added that to your Opac, so something you can turn on or turn off. And once we go to the next screen, we'll show you where it lives. So if your user is finding a title and like they said, this is the title we want, they can go ahead and just scan that QR code and it'll go right to their phone for that record, whether they want to, you know, what if you got rid of all your pencils and paper at the public catalogs and you just said, okay, scan this, and then you have it on your phone, you can walk over there. So, or you're at home on your computer and you want it on your phone. So this is fantastic. We grabbed a few more things because, of course, 12 just seemed really small, or 12 seemed really big. So we grouped some things together and we call it Patron Empowerment. So things such as messaging preferences, auto renewals, privacy, PayPal, password. Koha gives you so many ways to customize your patrons' empowerment process, allowing them to pick and choose what messages they receive and don't receive. Of course, not the overdues. These are your happy, fun messages. Whether they can pay their bill through the PayPal. You know, if that's something you want to start doing, that's built into Koha. If you want them to be able to decide their privacy rights, you've never given them that option, but maybe they want to save their checkout history or not save their checkout history. Giving that power back to the patron is really helpful, and Koha has all these ways to do that.
You know, yesterday when we were talking about shifting perspectives, Ed mentioned in the presentation that, you know, almost everything that you see in Koha is library suggested. And, you know, in your system preferences for these Opac settings, everything has a turn on, turn off, or enable, disable. And that is just the power of, you know, open source as a community and the beautiful ways that Koha has made it customizable for each library. So if you don't want to use something, you can turn it off, or if you do want to use something, you can turn it on. Okay, our next tip is about enhanced content. And of course, we've seen this grow over the years, and there's lots of different things that you can use, including star ratings, which enables your users to give a title a 1 to 5 star rating, saying 1, they didn't care for it, or 5, they loved it. You could use tagging. And, you know, whenever Kelly and I talk about tagging, we always say this can go both ways. You know, your patrons can create tags which would help users to, look at those tags and search. But we've also seen librarians use tags as a way for either their students or faculty to search. It's a great way for liaison librarians or subject librarians to work with professors and faculty to integrate that into the classroom. You can turn on reviews, a way for your patrons to leave reviews about a title. And then, of course, e-content. And if you've been watching Monday Minutes, you've seen Kelly and I talk about this over the years, Hoopla, Cloud Library, Overdrive, all different ways to bring that e-content directly into Koha so your users can find titles, not only what's in the print collection, but also what you have available online.
The slides I think Jason is putting on the website, I have a PDF that you can link out to that will give all the system preferences that we're going to cover, all these tips and the resources available. So whether that's a blog post, a Monday Minutes, or the jQuery for that reordering the facets, that's all going to be listed in this PDF. So I just wanted to give you access to that so you have it in your hands so you can go home with something that you're going to be able to make those changes. I showed you some people's Opacs. I wanted to give you links. You can, of course, see all our Bywater partner Opacs on our Bywater website. They're listed under library partners. That's what I did when I was looking for examples. I just clicked a lot of libraries Opacs, which also gives you ideas on how you can highlight different things and copy somebody else's and say, oh, I love what they did on this one, and I also love what they did on that one. So this is just an example of some of the Opacs you can look at. And then our contact information, if you wanted to email us, or if you had any specific questions, you're more than welcome to email us at, there you go, Zairo or Kelly. And now I get to play with this fun mouse pad and share my screen, and we'll do some live things. Won't that be fun? Nope, that's not it.
We did have a question come.
Oh, perfect.
We did have a question that came in during the session, and somebody asked about, can you prevent the public from editing public lists, i.e. can they be used solely for a tool for librarians to present curated lists? And I did update them, but I wanted to share this for those that are in the room. You can set, when you're setting up a list, you can set it to allow changes to contents from owner only. And we can show you that as we're going through the staff client and the Opac today.
I'm gonna get there, I promise. Yeah, go for it.
You said in one of your list, I think it's number 6, I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
But it says for privacy.
Yep.
Okay. And that they can delete their history or not. I know that you said at the beginning that you want the library to get in maybe with a mentor. But I can't do library school with a mentor. And also it's our privacy. When a patient has an option to delete their circulation history, it can become a problem legally, because if they're, I come from a place where you have to have FBI agents come and ask for a person's circulation history.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that option, that can, that right there seems like a little problematic to me, but I can understand it. I didn't even know that you could have a patient have an option to delete that circulation history. Because in some cases, it's good. We have data readers and then sometimes pick the same book. You know, you read this book last time. So I can see the pros and cons of it, but I didn't know we were allowing the patients to have that option.
Yep, and let me just repeat the question for YouTube because they probably couldn't hear you. We have somebody in the room that's saying they didn't know that privacy was an option through the Opac, and of course that fine line of giving them the option but not then being able to assist them to know if they've read something in the past. So of course that fine line that we're always wanting to be able to accommodate the patron to know, yes, you've read this J.A. Jantz book, or no, you didn't. But it's just something that your library can decide whether, yes, you can opt in or you can remove it. And if you're choosing to remove it, or you're just not saving it for anybody, Koha will always save the last borrower for that item. So you do have that one last person, just in case you find out the DVD is missing or the audiobook. But we will show you how to do that. And then you can talk to your library and see if that's something that they want to look into. Another question. Yeah.
On the column organized.
Yeah.
You said to change it for staff. Can staff change it for themselves? Like, everybody ends their own.
No. So there was a question about column configurations, aka table settings, whether staff can do that on their own and make it specialized to them versus everybody. So column configuration / table settings is going to be customized for the entire staff client. I can show you a place where a staff member could adjust the columns they see during a session. So if they're like, okay, there's way too much information on this page, let me manipulate it for my time right now, they can do that.
There's still a there for the way that resets every single time.
Is there still a bug for that? I can find out. So what are you saying, Pam? Yeah, so if you're on
screen and you don't want to see XYZ columns, and so you uncheck them,
mm-hmm.
And then you do something with one of the items. When the page refreshes after you done the thing, it goes back to the default configuration every single time. Really annoying on some pages.
Got it.
Anywhere where you can't adjust the column.
Yep.
You adjust it and then you do something, it resets.
Yep, absolutely. So everywhere you see a little spoke, I don't know if that's called a gear or a spoke, you can adjust the columns for that one-time option. And I could say, okay, I'm going to get rid of collection. I don't want to look at call number. So Hannah's saying that that's great. But if I leave the screen and look at another book, those settings are not saved. And you think there's a bug, I'll find out what the status is of it. That would be nice though, wouldn't it? To stay for your browser session?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure somebody, yeah, I'm sure somebody out there knows that bug. Okay, so let's do this. We're gonna go and do some live stuff. I'm gonna pop over to the Opac first. We talked about websites, adding websites to the staff in the Opac. So you see that I added some those options at the top. I added the options at the bottom, and I'm going to show you where to do that. I also talked about adding websites to the staff client. So this static bar up here, if you can see it, you can add more links up there. I believe, is there somebody here from Benbrook? Do you know? They actually, this is from Benbrook, they have a help me at the top of their static bar, which will, if a staff member clicks it, it will email her directly. Other libraries have had this link and say, submit a ticket to Bywater. So I've got an issue, it's gonna go right into the ticketing system. So let's go ahead and show you just a quick look at those. We're gonna start in the tools module. And as Jessie was saying earlier, some of the system preferences to customize the Opac have changed to news. So here is the Opac credits. So what that is identifying is where we're going to add that information at the bottom. And this main user block is at the top, where that's the cover flow Jessie was talking about. So that's really exciting. To add a link to the top of your static bar on the staff client, who thinks that's amazing? Me.
Amazing.
Amazing. It is called Intranet Nav. And that's all it is, really. It's a little link. So it's going to show Bywater here, and this is the link it's going to go to. So if I click this Bywater, it's going to go right to my education page for Bywater Solutions so people can get more resources, get that answer they're looking for. And then that other one is the help me and where it's going to. So if you click that, you'd email training@bywatersolutions.com. So super fantastic. Like, I think this is great to know that you can customize different areas of Koha to fit your staff and patron needs.
Yeah, we have it. So I have one of your multiple minutes copy and get that or whatever and set it up to where we can go to our Opac because the staff client side, we can't see what overdrawn, what results come up from overdrawn.
Yeah.
So if a patron says, do you have this? We don't have it, but I can click on the Opac really quick. Go
Nice.
there and see, yes, we have it on overdraft. If you want to utilize it for an ebook,
Perfect. Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. Wally from Prosper is here in the house, and he uses the top bar to add the Opac link. So his staff can pop right over to the Opac with one click. So fantastic. Say it again. It comes out Monday morning at some point Eastern time, and you can sign up to just get it right to your email. I'll show you how afterwards. We've got another new Monday Minutes person.
Yep, the question was about how do you sign up for Monday Minutes, and you can sign up to have it come every Monday morning to your inbox, and we'll share that link.
Yep. Okay, the second tip was item type consolidation. So when your user comes in and says, I just want to find books, they don't have to click book, new book, lucky day book, 24-hour book. They can just click book. So you can consolidate your item types in a search category. You're not getting rid of your other item types. You're just making them all linked to one. This is set up through administration. And if we go to item types, you can see I have book and I have new book. But the next column over, this search category says book. So they're both linked to a search category called book. So if a user comes in and says, show me books, it's going to look at both my books and my new books. Fantastic. So if we wanted to do that with, say, DVDs, I don't have more than one DVD, but I'm going to still show it to you. You are going to link it to an item type category, which is an authorized value. I don't know if this was talked about in yesterday's authorized value webinar. I don't know if we talked about this. Oh, we did. We did. It was talked about. I hate to. I'm going to click it. We can just go ahead and create a new one. Remember, when you're creating an authorized value, it's going to be 10 characters or less, all in caps. Make it nice and easy for the code. Go to the item types. Then I'm just going to go ahead and edit. Can I click this like this and edit it? Yeah. And this search category, I can go ahead and, this mouse doesn't like me. I can pick that DVD and then click more than one item type to click to it. So fantastic. I love it. I love it. Make it easy for your user. We all love lots of item types because those drive our circulation rules. So we don't want to get rid of new DVDs and DVDs for our circulation policy, but we want our users to find the DVDs in one go.
Kelly, we had a question from online ask about if their consortium used, or one of the libraries used the search category to group them, would it affect the whole consortium? And I double checked to see if they had scoped Opacs. And when we say scoped Opacs, that means that each one of your branches has a unique link to their branch, so you can customize it. And just confirming with some of our developers here, Nick, for those of you who follow KidClamp online, each scoped Opac can use item type groups. So if you are thinking about that, that would be something that you can set up.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Jessie. Thanks. Great questions. Great questions. We talked about cleaning up your advanced search areas. So your shelving locations, your collection codes, even your item types, making so that terminology maybe is really helpful to your user. Both of your shelving location and your collection codes are going to live in your authorized values. So if I type in C code, I can come in here. I can change the description. I can have a description on the staff side and a description on the Opac. So if my staff talk about it in one way, but our patrons know it as something else, you can certainly have different terminology that works for both staff and patrons. So you can go ahead and edit this and say, okay, beginner reader, that's not as nice. Maybe we want to make it easy reader. Who knows? Whatever works for your library, you can go ahead and change that. Quite easy to do. Okay. Next, YouTube links. Has anyone put a YouTube link into their bib records? No. This is fantastic. This is something that came a while back in Koha, but then I think YouTube changed a bit, and then Koha needed to adjust to what YouTube did. So there are a few system preferences in your Koha system that you would need to make sure to alter. And here it is. If I just type in HTML5 or HTML, I can see those 3 system preferences. And you can determine how that YouTube tab is going to show, whether you want it to show in both the Opac and the staff client or just one or the other. And then finally, you just need to make sure that you can embed those YouTube links. So embed needs to be chosen, and then just tell us how to customize it. So I have it both in the Opac and the staff client, so both my staff and my patrons can see it. So if I type in, I'm going to go to the Opac.
And George just shared in the chat online that from Neckles, he has used this feature to share movie trailers for DVDs.
Perfect, perfect. So here's my Captain Marvel. So as a user, I'm on the Opac, and I have this new tab that says Play Media. So I can go ahead and look at the trailer and say, did I watch this Captain Marvel, or is this the one I haven't watched? I mean, there's so many of these Marvel movies, you may need this little Play Media. Again, I'm not leaving the Opac. I'm doing everything right here in-house. I'm not having to go to YouTube or IMDb. Let's pop over to the staff client and look at another example, just so you can see it there.
So does that require any special permissions? So many of us are government, agencies that require anything for filters and such to be able to do that. We have to get our IT people involved, or just go through.
I don't think so. I have a question in the room asking about, whether if this is going to work through filters in the library, maybe a town-run library. I would say that it's going to work on their home computers. It depends on what filtering you have on maybe your public catalog and your staff catalog. I mean, if you can you access YouTube from your staff computer? Yeah, then you should be good. You should be good. So here, again, this is another way you can see that Play Media tab, and there's your story time at the LA Public Library. How fantastic is that? You can see, for anything, is there any catalogers out there? I'm gonna probably, oh, Hannah's here. She's gonna cringe. But you see, I have it just say, click here. So you can customize what it says for the link and how to add the link. So I'm just going to go ahead and edit the record just so you can see how easy it is to do this. But Hannah in the room, do you know where I put a link in, Hannah? 856, you were so close. 856U is where that link is going to go. And then you can see, I don't have link text, but there's my link text. It's weird. It doesn't say what I thought it said in my public notes. So I can add some information and say like, watch the video, click here, trailer included, whatever I want my users to see. So pretty fantastic. Hopefully everyone goes home, goes back to their library and plays around with that. See how it works. Even if you recorded your programming, it might be nice to have some, dummy bib records just so you can link out to that and then have it as a list. Oh, how fantastic. We're combining multiple things. Table settings, AKA column configuration. As Jessie was saying, that's in your admin. And actually, I'm in the older version, so mine says configure columns. This will tell you all the places that you can customize the columns in all the different areas of Koha. If I head over to the Opac and I wanted to get rid of the due date, You know, maybe you don't want your patrons to actually know when something's due. It's checked out and you see their due date, and then they're maybe hovering the library saying, has it been returned? Is it coming back? I can go right to the holdings table, scrolling, and I can mark things like date due. So then it's hidden on the Opac. Super easy, nice and way to make sure that you are only showing your patrons what they want to see or what you want them to see. Koha recently allowed you to see the material specified note. And I know libraries are using it to say count CDs or includes 12 CDs. If you wanted to hide that note, that you could do that here as well, materials. Any questions? My second page of notes. Okay. We're going to look at our PDF links. I feel like there's something I see. Search one of those records I added a PDF to. So there's my City of Surprise Library board minutes. And let's look at how you can add a PDF to your record. You can see, there it is again. Oops. There it is again. There's your review board meeting minutes, so your user can easily click that. But we're going to go into the dark side and look at how we can add that to the MARC record. You can add that again to the 856U. So if you have like a Google link, or if you have a separate server that you have a link to, so we have a lot of libraries that host documents on a different server, you can absolutely link over to that. So again, same place, super, super fun to do that. Lists. Under your More drop-down menu, you can see all the public lists that your library has. And then these are going to be available to your users to see the items in the Opac. So if it's a public list, it's going to be seen on the Opac. Super great. Jessie mentioned also that you can incorporate your lists to your cover flow. So you can say, I'm going to create this fantastic list, and then I want it to appear as a cover flow on my Opac. If I go back to my catalog, I'm going to go back to the Opac. So I have a staff pick list. So as I start to curate that staff pick, I can make it so my users can see it here. They can also see it under the lists. So there's my staff picks as well. Lists are so versatile. Like I can take what's in a list and put it in my own list as a patron. I can place holds on these. I can find more material that I may have not known existed in the library and doing my basic searches as that patron. Any questions? Y'all having fun? I can see it. There's so many smiles on the face. It's like glowing in this room. Oh yes, yes.
For the list, is there like a page you can go and like scroll down the list without having to drop down?
Say, you want to go to the list of lists without going to the drop down? Ooh, that's a good question. Everything is a URL, Hannah. So if I took this and I made it, I could actually put this list at the top of my static bar. I could put it over on the left of my staff clients, or ask if instead of going to lists and then public lists, how we can access that on the staff client or the Opac, Hannah?
Okay.
So you could take this link, put it over on the Opac nav right, customization on the left, wherever you want it to live. So let's pop over to the catalog and I'll show you. Because again, it's a URL, so it's fantastic. It's super versatile. So you see these links over here, you could make that a link, like check out our list, and that's your Opac nav. Yeah, great idea. So again, that link, that URL, you can do that with anything in Koha. If you have a permanent URL that you want to share with anybody, that will be, if you have a list that you want to share, say you only want to share your staff pick list, again, that's a URL that you can grab, throw it into a newsletter and say, hey, we've got new staff picks. Great question.
Kelly?
Yeah.
We had a question come through and ask, are there any copyright concerns with including movie trailers in the catalog? So embedding, just to follow up, embedding a YouTube video. So taking that embed code from YouTube that YouTube does provide for you and bringing it into your catalog does not infringe on copyright laws, but now making a copy of the video and claiming it as your own would make copyright issues. So if you use the embed code that YouTube provides, you are, bringing that in through YouTube. But now if you would make a personal copy or take a screenshot or do anything like that, then that does move into copyright laws. So if you are concerned about that, I would definitely suggest looking more into some of the copyright laws. But if you're just using that embed code and bringing it in, you are okay. Anything further than that, making copies or taking screenshots would infringe on copyright laws.
Oh, perfect. Good to know. Yes, I have another question.
This is somewhat related to this, PDF. So you mentioned you a link to PDF. Is there a way to store PDFs?
Yes, you can store them depending on how many files you're going to do. We could have a conversation and say, okay, I have like 700,000 PDFs I want to store. We would say, okay, let's maybe make your server a little larger. But if you were doing it, yes, we can absolutely host those for you. That was talking about using PDFs on our server and hosting those things. Okay, good questions. This is fantastic. I'm glad I learned something new today too about, the YouTube embedding. The reordering the facets. I know everyone was like, that's fantastic, Kelly, I love it. Okay, so reordering of the facets. Remember, those are the facets when your user goes and makes a search. You can absolutely, and again, this is on my PDF of resources that I've shared, reorder them. So I'm popping over to the Opac user CSS, and let me tell you, this is a scary place for me. I'm not a CSS girl. I'm not an HTML thing. I don't understand any of it. But again, great news. I know people, they showed me how to do it, and now I can do it. So, and I've shared the code. So really, it's this area right here, and I can't highlight it because I don't know how to use this mouse. But you can see the numbers. Order 1, order 2, order 3, order 4. And you can say, okay, I want 2 to go to 4 and 4 to go to 2. Just changing those numbers will reorder them on the Opac. Again, I've shared this. This is when you find out one library is doing it. You're like, I love that. I want to do it on mine. And we want to share it in the community. So it's really easy. One other thing I added, because I always like to take it to the next level. Hey, can I hide any of the facets? Maybe I find a facet not useful at all. I don't have a great data in that information. You can see the third line down, number 66, collection, I have it hidden. So it says display none. If you can see that. So I said, okay, just get rid of collection from those facets and it won't even show if it's not useful to my patrons. Oh, guys, we're gonna clap way louder. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. We're in it to win it. Self-registration. Is anyone using self-registration? I think you are, Wall area.
We're using a modified version. We have we've set up an application online for you guys.
Got it.
And then they can fill it in, and then it just pops over as if they were a user and they have to come in.
Okay.
And it's on the card number.
Okay, perfect. So a modified, customized way of doing it. Within Koha, you can determine your mandatory fields. So things that your patron has to fill out to get this temporary card. Whether they have to confirm by email. So do you want to make sure that their email doesn't already exist in the computer? You can make self-registration available to only specific branches. So if you're a multi-branch system, hey, this library doesn't want to do, but I do, that's also a great system preference that exists. And then what else do we have here? Look at them all. You create a patron category code, so then you can easily identify them as that temporary code. We have probably 4 blog posts about self-registration, which I've linked in that PDF. So if you are interested and you want to set it up, it's all there.
I'm gonna give a plug because it's on our final page when you get to the end. it pops up a big success with confetti and everything.
Oh, really?
Lucas did that, and he did an awesome job.
Oh.
So, yeah. And we get more compliments about it.
Really?
We're like, oh, I did something right, you know. So yeah. Lucas is a wizard.
He is Lucas is getting a shout out. Maybe he's watching. Oh, Lucas is awesome. We got 2 shout outs from Lucas. Wally's self-registration page. At the very end, when their patron hits submit, they get confetti thrown at them on the screen, and patrons love it and they feel great. So Lucas did that for Wally, and now everyone's gonna love it. But yeah, fantastic. I love that Lucas did that for you. That's amazing. QR code, I mean, I'm sure everyone's just like going, wow, I want the QR code. Easy peasy. Just type in QR in your system preferences and you can turn that on. Doesn't hurt. Patrons might never use it, but it's an option to have on the Opac.
Again, just another awesome koha community coming together, pushing this through during the pandemic. So when people were safely coming back into the libraries, we could turn it around and get them to easily share that information in the system.
Yeah, absolutely. It was fantastic. We talked about patron empowerment, and I want to talk about the privacy just to show you where that exists, and talk about the messaging preferences, because those are 2 big ones that is nice, and password. I guess we can talk about password. I want to show it to you all. I can't stop. Okay, messaging preferences. If you want to allow your users to set their messaging preferences, like I want text messages, I want this emailed, I don't want this, I do want this, I want a 5-day advance notice or a 3-day advance notice. If you want to give your patrons that power, easy peasy, allow your enhanced messaging preferences Opac, allow your users to set those on the Opac. They hit it, it's done. They don't have to call you and say, stop sending me emails. Then you won't take it personally. It's fantastic. So if you're not using that and you want to use that, that's awesome. I don't know if I just type in privacy. Yep, there it is. Opac privacy, allow patrons to choose their own privacy settings for readers. So that's a simple one right there. Let me pop over to the Opac and just show you what that looks like. I'll log into my account. So I'm going to go over here. It's going to live here under privacy. And it says, hey, how do you want me to save your privacy? Koha is asking you, giving you 3 choices: forever, default, and never. And then you've got this big red button. So somebody's knocking at your door and you're like, get rid of everything. Remove it. That's immediate deletion, and you've decided, please don't let anyone ever see it. I'm really embarrassed by my obsession with trolls, and it needs to end. So fantastic, wonderful. And then finally, I'm going to talk about passwords. I know I'm almost out of time. I thought an hour was going to be so long. We could talk about koha all day, right, Jessie?
Absolutely.
Password, I just typed in password. You can see I never remember a system preference to save my life. Password, I get 2 here for Opac. Allow your users to change their own password on the Opac. So I've logged in and I want to change it. So if your staff is assigning a password when they create it and you want them to be able to change it, that's something you can turn on. Libraries allowed to recover their password. So again, how many people have forgotten a password? I don't want to call the library. I don't want to, it's the middle of the night. I just want to put some books on hold. If I'm allowed to reset my password, I get an email, click the link, and I reset the password. No librarian was woken up in the middle of the night for my problems. Okay. I've put all the other things, I've put all the other things in my PDF, so please, or a PDF. So please, if you have any questions, we're here. Please, ask us any, or email us.
I want to make one last comment. We've had a lot of conversation going back and forth online about copyright while you're embedding those YouTube links. Use common sense. We're librarians, look up copyright rules. There's an appellate court case that talks a lot about it. If you don't feel comfortable, don't do it. If you feel comfortable, make sure you do your homework and look it up before proceeding.
Thanks, Jessie, and thanks, Kelly. I hate to cut you off because it's really interesting, but we do have another presentation coming up.